Here we have the brand new Bisontek BT360. This is a mini skid steer loader. So in this video, I'm going to do a quick walk around of it. I'm going to show you it in action a little bit. And then towards the end, I'm going to do a whole bunch of modifications to this. Because even though I do sell these machines, this is my personal one. And there's a bunch of stuff I'm going to change on it to make it on how I like it. So anyway, we're going to start at the front here, and we have the standard Toro Dingle style quick attach bucket, which this is actually basically the same width of the tracks. Some of these similar like stand-up machines, which this is kind of in the same category as that you stand up behind them. The bucket's actually quite a bit skinnier than the tracks, but this one's about the same width, which is kind of nice. Has your standard hydraulic hookups right here, which I'm going to definitely use. Of course, there's your quick attach pins. Just kind of pull this up and turn it off to the side. Kind of like that. You do that on both sides and the bucket just comes right off. There's a hydraulic cylinder at quite the interesting angle up underneath here, which you'll kind of see that when I show this in action here in a minute. And then, of course, the other hydraulic cylinder for the bucket is also at an interesting angle. But I have tested this with a set of pallet forks. I have been able to lift about 500 pounds with this. Seems to about run out of hydraulic cylinder power, but at the same time, the back of the machine wants to come in the air. This does have the Rado 420, which is identical to the Harbor Freight Predator 420, which is a very good engine. I've tested these engines out myself, and they've withstood, everything I've put at it, including much higher RPM than they were designed for. So this little latch here always gets stuck, so I came prepared with a little screwdriver to get this open. So I just gotta, spray some lube in there and get that to work. But anyway, so underneath the cover here, this is how you get to the gas tank and everything. One of my complaints is you can't get the air filter off because this little bracket here is in the way. So I'm going to probably just cut that off somewhere along here, but you'll see later on in the video where I do that. I actually had this engine out, and that's why the air filter bracket, or the air filter cover, it's missing. Because I upgraded the hydraulic pump on here already to make it go faster, because from the factory these things are like ridiculously slow. I mean, I'm talking like a slow walking speed would be faster than this goes at full throttle. But now it goes like a fast walk, kind of like a speed walk kind of speed, like, I don't know, 3 miles an hour probably at full throttle, which is probably about right. So I guess back to where we were here. We have a oil cooler, which is a nice feature. Some of these, similar machines don't have one of these. However, I have to switch the two wires here, which the one's a plus and one's a minus, because it actually sucks in the air from the engine area and then blows it out the back. And that's kind of dumb because, of course, the engine gets hot. So all this is going to basically do is heat up your hydraulics faster. So by switching the polarity of that, which is these fans are designed for that, it'll suck in fresh air from the back and then just blow the hot air inside by the engine, and that won't really matter anyway. I have to do that on every single one I have of these that I sell, because that's not right. And another thing I'm going to do is this little bottom cover here. You got to pull off that bolt, that bolt, that bolt. There's actually one missing, so 4 bolts on each side just to get to the engine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some kind of hinge on one of the sides and then a little latch. So this kind of opens up sort of like the top here does. And then underneath the seat is actually the battery and the hydraulic tank. However, there's these 4 bolts that you got to take off to get to that, which is kind of dumb. So I'm going to do it with that and actually put a hinge here. It has an adjustable seat, which is nice. So this just, you push it up and the seat just slides. This says gasoline filling port. However, if you pull that off, there's a hydraulic reservoir down below there. I don't know why they call it that. And then up here we got, a little sticker that says, what all the function does. You got forward, reverse. This would be loader up and down. And then same thing over here. And then this would be your bucket dump and, I guess, tilt back. And then this is your auxiliary hydraulics, which on this particular machine, if you just let go of it, it stays on in both, forward and back positions. So if you're running like an auger or something where you just want it on, that's kind of nice. But something like a grapple, you gotta, quickly release it because it doesn't spring back. Or if you accidentally bump this and don't realize you have it bumped, and then you go to start it, you'd think the engine's locked up, and it's actually not. It's just this lever is pushed. So, because that's, creating a load. And of course, you got your battery disconnect that all of these machines have. You got your choke here, your throttle over here, little floor down there. Another thing I'm definitely going to do is I'm going to raise this seat up because the controls are way higher than they should be. So I'm going to put a couple blocks or some kind underneath the seat just to give that little bit of lift so I don't have to reach up so high. And then of course we got an hour meter here. We got a 12 volt outlet, which is labeled 12 to 24 volt, and that's upside down. And then it says 12 volt here on that label, so that's interesting. We got a light switch, a horn, which you'd have to turn the key on for that, but I'm not going to do that because that's loud. Alright, so we've got it pulled into the shop here, so kind of working on my first modification. I guess the first thing I've already did is I switched out the hour gauge for one of these hour gauges that has the hours and volts all in one. So that's pretty cool, and I already have it matches, already have it to match. So it says 0.6, and that's what this already had on it. So my other modification I'm going to do under here, which this was actually pretty simple to get underneath. I had to pull off this one bolt on each side, and then these three along the bottom, and I took these little boots off of the two levers there, and I also took this little plastic knob off the auxiliary lever, and then this just kind of slid right up, and I kind of have it balancing on this lever here. I was going to change out the headlights, but I decided I'm going to just leave those for now. I'm really not going to use this at night, and if I do, these will be fine. It's not really worth it. I mean, then how nicely wired these are, I'm just going to leave it. But anyway, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to turn up the hydraulic pressure slightly. And if you see right here, and this is one of those do-at-your-own risk type of things. I wouldn't recommend doing it, but I'm going to do it anyway. Right at the tip of my finger here, there's like a little acorn-shaped kind of nut. You have to pull that off, and then there's like a little screw with like a hex head. You got to use like an Allen wrench, and you screw it in, it'll turn up the pressure. You unscrew it, it'll turn down the pressure. So I'm going to just give it like, I don't know, 1 or 2 more turns just to give it a little bit more pressure. And then close all this back up. And then we'll work on the next thing. Alright, so I did the next thing. I did it off camera because I didn't really know what I was going to be doing. But I put this little hinge across the bottom here. It's, you know, one of those long and skinny, I think they call it a piano hinge. Put a couple nuts underneath the front just as little spacers. So that's just sitting up there, self-tapping, screwed into the frame after, of course, I pre-drilled with some holes. I have these little rubber spacers that I don't even know, they're like 1 inch tall or whatever. They just threaded right into the frame, right where these back bolts went. So now, you know, when you set it down, it's got a soft spot to hit, and it raises it up ever so slightly. Got to peel the rest of this plastic off, that's bothering me. So I got that done. Also changed the angle of these hoses a little bit. I just kind of loosened them up slightly and then turned them up. Because they were sticking way back here. Move the loader up and down to make sure they're not going to get pinched or anything. Next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to unplug these 2 wires and put them in the plug in a different way so this fan actually turns backwards like I was mentioning before. So to do this, it's going to be pretty simple. Well, it should be anyway. You got these 2 little plugs in here. You can kind of see there's a little tab there that's keeping it from falling out. All you got to do is kind of poke that with a screwdriver. And you got to kind of just, you know, poke this in there and bend it a little bit. Just to kind of push it out of the way. And then this should just pull right out, assuming they get bent far enough. You kind of got to... There we go. Alright, so I had to pause the camera, look back at the video so I know which way this goes. And then these should just simply just plug right back in, right where they came from. And voila, look at that. Now we can just plug this back in. Now this fan, instead of sucking air from the engine compartment and blowing it out the back, essentially heating the hydraulics, it'll now suck in fresh air from the back and blow it out the front, which, yeah, it's going to kind of blow it at the driver a little bit, but I mean, hydraulics really aren't going to get that hot, and they're not supposed to be that hot either. But let's double check here that this is actually flowing the right way. Yep. So that's perfect. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to address this thing right here, which is preventing me from putting my ear box back together. So as it sits, if you close this here, you got to lift up on it ever so slightly for this to sit up on that. Now what I just want to make sure is, you know, if I cut this bracket off, is that going to cause any issues with this not being supported by anything? Now it kind of appears that the way this locks, this kind of goes up like that, and that catches up in here. So I would think that would be okay if it just kind of, you know, hangs by the hinge and doesn't rest on this, because there is a pretty good, you know, heavy duty hinge over here. So I'm going to just cut this off and see what happens, because I'd really like to put the air box back together. That's more important than this back door at this point. I can always figure out something else. So I'm going to get that cut, come back, and hopefully get the air box back on. Alright, I just got that little piece cut off, just took a reciprocating saw and just kind of halved at it. And that's no longer attached, so hopefully that's not going to be an issue with this door. Alright, so air filter went right back on, so that's awesome. So kind of looks like they didn't need to even put this bracket on at all at the factory. So let's see how this door works. Will it work better? I mean, technically it's actually better because you don't have to lift up on it now. And that should, well, something ain't right with this latch. So that's not, something isn't right, which isn't what I just did. This is just this latch being kind of dumb. Let's just try to move that. See, now it's right. I don't know, let's try this again. So something's goofy with this latch. Let me shut the camera off and see what I can do, and then come back and we'll try it again. Alright, so I fixed that back lock a little bit. It's still not perfect, probably because I cut that little part off, but oh well. At least I can get to the air filter now. I did adjust this hinge a little bit. I loosened all 4 of those bolts there, and I pulled up on this side a little bit, and then tightened it back down just to bring it back up. I also went ahead and made this little bracket to hold the seat up, which this is going to be a little tricky with one hand, but see what we can do here. So you kind of bring the seat down and then set it on top, something like that. Not ideal, because if you bump this, the seat can just fall back down, but it is what it is. So it's better than, I guess, not having one. So there's a look underneath. I downgraded the battery to just a standard lawnmower battery, because the one that had, I mean, you could start a 3-cylinder diesel with. You don't need that big of a battery for this engine. So that's just a standard lawnmower battery. I needed that other battery for something else, so I downgraded it. Between that and, there's only these 2 bolts that hold it up. You got this one here and that one there, and that big battery was just a lot of weight for that bracket. And then there's that hydraulic pump that I upgraded. I'll insert a couple pictures here of the old one and the new one. And if you see in the inside where the gears are, the new one here is twice the amount of gears, I guess, which means twice the amount of pump speed, I'd assume, which it's significantly faster than it was. So I'm going to try to get this back down. Try to sit the seat down without this pinching. And it pinched. So I gotta, there, I guess that's just, whatever, it's fine. So I was looking at the decals on here, because I took some of them annoying ones off on the dash and stuff. I ordered a really cool, because this is a Bisontek machine, really cool, like, Bison decal, and I'll put that on the screen right here for the side here. So I'm hoping that arrives by the time I want this video to be uploaded. Oh yeah, speaking of decals, you got to see what the ones here that are left on it, that, you know, I left them on, say. You got, dang it, crush hazard, keep out of this area when lift arm is raised unless life arm is supported. And there's a period in the middle of the sentence. And keep out of this area when the arm is in the air. The arm's up there, not back here, so that's kind of dumb. And then you have warring, place area keep clear. Okay. So what I'm working on right now is this canopy. Now, it's supposed to have a roof, but they didn't send one with it, so I guess I'm stuck with this. Which it's pretty sturdy the way it is, and no doubt it would be fine. However, because this came right out of the crate, you know, in the container and everything, they actually sent 2 canopy supports with this machine, which is interesting, but no plastic rooftop. So that made me come up with another idea here. So since this gray piece here is pretty thick, like it could handle, you know, a good amount of weight, and this is a canopy that I don't need because it's extra, I'm going to cut it someplace there, and then attach that to the side here coming up to help brace up the back. And then I'll just cut up a piece of plastic or something I have that isn't too ugly for the top. At least something that looks somewhat factory, because this is a brand new machine and I don't want it to look ugly. So I'm going to get these canopy supports figured out and then come back and show you that. Well, I got that canopy all done. So basically I just bolted it to the back here, which now that I'm seeing it, I never drilled a hole to put the second bolt in on each side. So I can do that now. But anyway, it's done. So basically I just cut it, you know, right here, which would be right here on the other canopy, and then there's the rest of it. And then just bolted that in the back, drilled some holes on the top, just help support the back. I mean, this thing is solid, it ain't going anywhere. And then I found this piece of plastic upstairs here, and just kind of cut that to fit, you know, not that straight of a line, but it works. It's kind of ugly. Maybe I'll come up with something to cover up the sides. Some kind of tape or something just to wrap around so you don't see how ugly and, you know, poorly cut that is. But anyway, moved on to the next thing. I tried this out for a little bit, just some, you know, kind of dirt work grading and stuff on it. It has about an hour of use on it now. From here is when I'm going to take this back cover off, change the oil, because this still has that crappy Chinese oil that came with the engine in there. I probably should have changed it already. But anyway, I'm going to drain that out and get some full synthetic stuff in there. I went to put on these set of pallet forks, which are made for a machine like this. And these little pins, which are quick attach pins, they're not fitting all the way through the hole here, which, I mean, it does fit in there. But, I mean, but just barely. I mean, I'd be willing to say that with any kind of movement, they'll just slip out. And then I got realizing there is these 2 little set screws right here, which I'm about guessing that if you took a wrench and loosened those up, I could probably push this pin down in there further and get it to latch better. So I got both sides of those pins adjusted like I was showing you before, so they stick down plenty far enough into that little bracket. I can always come back and, you know, adjust them further if I need to. Came up with another thing I want to do. So right now, as soon as you turn the key on, it turns the fan on, kind of like that. And I'm thinking on adding some kind of a switch. Too bad, you know, there's not one here already for the fan, you know, so it matches, because some of these machines, they have 3, one for the fan, lights, and then horn. Well, this one just has lights and horn, so that's unfortunate. So anyway, I'll add like a toggle switch, like right here or something. So I thought I'd give you a little update on my fan, little thing I was doing. So I traced the wire to the little relay, because there's a relay underneath the seat here on the floor. Or I guess not really on the floor, it's more like down here. So there's this relay right here. So I found that, of course, the red wire goes back to the fan. And then there's a yellow wire with a little green stripe on it, which matches what's up here. So, of course, I took it all that plug. And then here's the wire right here. So we're going to actually put this back in the plug with that same little trick I showed you with the plug back here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this wire and basically just hook it to a switch. And then that way you can shut the fan off if you don't want it on. Alright, so I thought I'd show you some progress on that switch. So I kind of got the wiring tore apart a little bit. I thought I'd show you what I've done before I tape this all back, you know, and put it back in these little wire protectors like on how it came. So I have a wire spliced into this green one here, which is the main power coming in from basically the battery. It goes to a fuse and then connects to the battery. That goes up to this, basically it's a 3-position kind of switch. And then there's another one that comes from the power coming out of the key switch when the key is turned on. And then the other wire goes back through this plug, which goes to the fan, I'm going to get these wires wrapped up, put this dash back together, get some fresh oil in this engine. I might flush the inside of the engine out first with some gas or something just to help clean the rest of the crud out. And let that drip, drip out. And then, anyway, I'm going to get this closed up, do what I just said with the engine, come back and go from there. Got that all wrapped up as if nothing ever happened. So another progress update. So of course the dash, I got that all put back together. Thought I'd demonstrate this key, or not key switch. Well, I guess the key switch with this little switch for the fan. So there's an off position, so no matter what you do, you can turn the key on and the fan won't come on. Now from the factory, it would be in this setting here where the key is on and the fan comes on. It's on no matter what. Now if it's kind of cold outside or you're just running it for a few minutes, you don't really need to have the fan on to cool the hydraulics. Or if you have a dead battery or whatever, that just draws more current. So you can turn that off, and then, or let's just say, you've had it running for a while, it's really warm out, and you still want the fan to cool down the oil cooler and the engine compartment without having the key on. Well, there's an option for that too. And then, of course, I have stuff sitting on the seat, so it's difficult to show you, but I also made this little shroud right here just to kind of deflect some of the fan down into the engine compartment. And I actually stuck my hand down there, and you could actually feel, a little bit of a breeze down here because this little deflector, there's some of the fan, kind of helps direct it down, underneath here. So that'll kind of help out a little bit, especially if it's not running, it can kind of cool everything down. So next thing I'm going to do is, well, I've already cut this part in half. It's supposed to be U-shape. I already cut it in half, about there, because that's supposed to be attached on this side. And we're going to work on making a little door to access the engine, because otherwise you'd have to take this whole thing off, which is like 8 bolts, just to access the engine. So I'm going to work on that and come back and show you that. So I got the back door done. Of course, this side here is solid. That is where the valve cover is on the engine. And so I guess spark plug, but that you could probably get to from up top here. So the reason I left this side solid is I'm actually going to have take the stock muffler off, and I'm going to put like a generator muffler on the side here to kind of quiet it down a little bit. At least that's the plan anyway for, near future. Of course, I have a latch up here with this little clip to keep it shut because this original one don't work anymore. And this one's better anyway. It keeps it more, solid. Got these 2 hinges there. One of the original bolts that would thread into the frame, threaded in from the inside coming out just to help hold the bottom. And then I got 3 more latches here. I relocated the serial number plate underneath the dash where it's a little bit safer. So I got to get some stuff and get the sticky goo off. Otherwise, that's going to be it for this video. Of course, that concludes for the most part, other than the muffler for the modifications I'm going to do. And thanks for watching. I'm going to have a full kind of video of this machine doing some work coming in the next couple weeks or so.